Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Mr. Kovalt, and in this video we're going to go over why do bonds form between atoms. And so the ultimate answer is that they want to achieve the lowest potential energy possible between the charged particles. And so here we're talking about protons in the nucleus and electrons in the atom, especially the valence electrons, which are the outermost electrons, but all the electrons in the atom as well. So remember from Coulomb's law, so we have the energy, the potential energy of the system. Here we're talking about two atoms, but we could have more than one atom. But we're talking about the bond between two atoms in particular. And so it's some constant multiplied by this ratio here. So this is the ratio that's really important between charged particles. So Q1 and Q2 are the charged particles, and they could be both the same charge or opposite charge. And so then we're thinking about the distance between them. And so when we're talking about potential energy, we're talking about the interaction between those charged particles and how can we get the lowest potential energy. We saw before that if we're talking about charged particles that are opposite charge, like the proton of nucleus and the electrons, those the lowest possible or the lowest potential energy is going to be when they are getting closer together, because remember, a negative times a positive gives you a negative potential energy, and we want the most negative potential energy. So that means that the charged particles, the oppositely charged particles, like protons and electrons, the nucleus and the electrons want to be as close together as possible. So that's going to lower the potential energy. But then we're talking about the charged particles that are the same charge, like electrons. Electrons are negative and negative, so they want to repel each other. So bringing them close together is going to raise the potential energy, right? So remember, negative times a negative gives you a positive. So we're going to have positive potential energy with respect to the electrons. So bringing the electrons close together is going to raise that potential energy. Bringing the nuclei, right? So the two nuclei of the atoms are both positive. Bringing those close together is going to raise potential energy. But then the protons, the nuclei of the different atoms, and are going to be attracted to the electrons of opposite atoms and their electrons, right? So there is going to be a lowering of the potential energy. So there's this repulsion and attraction going on at the same time, and so we need to meet a happy medium, right? And that's where the bond forms. And so the bond forms when the potential energy of the bonded atoms is going to be less than that of the potential energy of the separate atoms. And so we have a diagram here. This is the interaction diagram between two hydrogen atoms. And you can see that the potential energy changes as you increase or decrease the distance between the atoms. So here you can see that here the two atoms are so close together, the nuclei are so close together that you've got that attraction, the repulsion of the positive nuclei. So you got the positive nuclei that are getting too close together, and that's raising the potential energy. You also have this overlap of the electron density of both atoms. So the electrons are repelling each other, although there is still attraction between the nuclei, the positive nuclei, and the electrons themselves that wants to keep the atom together. But bringing them too close is going to cause that repulsion force to be really high, and then that's going to cause the potential energy to go up, and you see that's going up like this. So bringing the electrons together, but if you bringing the protons, the nuclei together, you bring those close together, the potential energy goes up. But if you bring them out, right, they reach this minimum here, right? And so this is where you get the lowest possible energy, and this is where you get the bond forming. And so the bond here at this lowest potential energy is basically the happy medium between the repulsion of the nuclei, right? The positive nuclei are repelling each other. But then you've got the sharing, or the electrons here in the middle, right? You got both positive nuclei are attracted to those negative electrons. So they're attracted to the negative electrons that they're sharing. And so that's kind of keeping them together. So that's an oppositely attracted charges attracting each other. And so the negative electrons are repelling each other. So you've got this happy medium here where you've got the lowest potential energy. And this is where you get the bond energy of your bond. In this particular case, it'll be the bond energy between the two hydrogen atoms bonded together. And this is where you also get the bond length. So at this distance between them, this is where the lowest possible energy is. So that's where you get the bond energy on the bond length. But if you start to take these apart, right? So now you're stretching them, you're removing them farther apart from each other. That's going to now cause the potential energy to go up again, right? So you're separating the positively charged nuclei, right? That's going to lower potential energy, but at the same time, you've got this attractive force between the electrons and the positive nuclei, so you're kind of removing that as well. And so the balance is now causing the potential energy of the system to go up until, of course, you separate them fully apart from each other. And so you reach this plateauing where, the energy change between the two separated atoms is really not going to change much even if you keep separating them. So it kind of plateaus at an asymptote here. So this is your energy diagram. So this is showing that bonded atoms, if the energy of the separated atoms is higher than the potential energy of the atoms together, as we see here, then bonds are going to form rather than not form. Okay, so that is why bonds form. So I hope this video was helpful. If you like this video, if you learned from this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you can be notified by other videos I put out. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.